Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and Surging Sparks pre-releases do start this weekend, so I thought it was a good time to finally do a set review on Surging Sparks and just kind of talk about each card in the set, why I think they're good. I think this set actually is a lot better than Stellar Crown. I think there's more impactful cards in this set than there was in Stellar Crown. While Stellar Crown does have some good cards in it, I think Surging Sparks is a pretty good set too, especially for a November set. November sets tend to be a little underwhelming, but this time we actually got a decent one here, and I'm excited to look and talk about all the cards in the set and break them down and what makes them good. If y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 18,000 subs. Let me know your favorite card and what card you're most looking forward to in Surging Sparks down in the comments below. And I'm using Pokemon's website because I actually have the entire set list available, which is really cool. So we get to actually look at all the cards here on the site. So that's cool. So leave a link to that, and let's get into it. So starting things off here, we do have a brand new Durant. We do have this new Durant here with its ability, Sudden Shearing. When you place Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Then it's got the attack Vengeful Crush. That does 120 plus 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent's taken. So obviously a really good late-game attacker that can be nice to one-shot Charizard EXs. Its ability is decent, because like milling a card can be good. You can actually stack the ability, so you could technically, let me zoom in a bit more, you could technically bench a bunch of Durants at once and just mill like 4 cards out of nowhere. You can Penny, Turo it, stuff like that. It's a bit of a meme, but it could actually be pretty cool, for sure. Definitely not a bad card, but it is a little mediocre because like I don't know the best way to play it. I've seen people talk about playing it with Fortress EX as a way to charge it up. Not too sure what deck it's going to be played in. Maybe like Snorlax, you could like bench it over and over again, penny loop it, and then just keep milling a card and putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. That could be a decent way to play it. We do have a brand new Pavilion here, which is interesting. It's got the attack Evo Pattern. For each of your bench Pokemon, search check for a card that evolves that Pokemon and evolve it. So it's kind of like a TM evolution, basically, except you can evolve a bunch of Pokemon at once. The problem is it's a Stage 2. If it was a Stage 1 Pokemon, this would probably be a little bit better. It's a Stage 2 Pokemon. It might be a little bit too slow to truly make work. This new Shiinotic, though, actually could be good with a Jinx in the format. Jinx EX has the ability Calming Light. Once you're in turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon asleep. We haven't had an ability auto put your opponent to sleep in a while, especially when it's kind of a decent pivot. Now, unfortunately, it does have a 2 retreat cost. You can't play it with Rescue Board, but you compare this with Jinx EX. Jinx EX's attack does knock out your opponent's active Pokemon if they're asleep. So you have yourself a really cool combo there. Shiinotic Jinx will be a fun rogue deck to try out. It just sucks it has a 2 retreat. You have to play it with Switch in order to move it instead of like Rescue Board, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I guess you could play with like Pekka and Morpeko, maybe. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like ways you could theoretically play it. We do have a couple of interesting grass attackers here. We have Rabsca with the attack counter turn. If there are 3 or fewer cards in your deck, this attack does 200 more damage. So you can do 240 for 1 energy. The problem is you need to put your deck down super low, but we can try to thin our deck down with some cards like Trekking Shoes, Pokestop, Research, Greninja, stuff like that. It's probably not too hard to get your deck down that low, and once you make your deck super small, you can kind of loop this attack over and over again. I mean, 240 for 1 is a lot of damage. That's even one-shotting Raging Bolt EX. That could be a fun rogue. Then we have Woshi in here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyogre. It's not as good as Kyogre, but it does have the attack Hazardous Greed. If there are 3 or fewer cards within your deck, this attack does 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you could maybe play this within Lost Box, kind of like how you would play Kyogre, where you would get your deck down really low, and then you would Hazardous Greed them, and you can potentially take like 4 prizes really quickly with Woshan. You can like snipe stuff. The problem is you can't hit Teomask Ogerpon. You can hit like Fez, Mew, Squawkabilly. You can just hit them with Hazardous Guard twice in a row and win the game that way. So maybe there's like a cool Woshian Lost Box deck that we could cook up, kind of like the Wish Temu version of Kyogre. So that could be a really cool concept there. This new Victini here is interesting. It does have the ability Victory Cheer. Attacks used by your Evolution Fire Pokemon do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you can make an Evolution Pokemon like an Incineroar EX hit even harder. I think Incineroar with a Choice Belt and a Victini is going to be one-shotting Regidrago and like Lugia in one hit, which is kind of cool. So any like Evolution Fire Pokemon in the format does benefit from Victini. It looks like the ability does stack. You can have multiple Victinis in play at once, which is kind of sick. Let's see here. This new Skeledirge is interesting. It's basically a Stage 2 version of Palkia V-Star. It's got the ability Unaware, prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done on this Pokemon. So while this card sits on the bench, your opponent cannot use Dragapult to damage it, which is kind of cool. But the big thing is its attack. Torturetto is literally Palkia V-Star's attack subspace. Well, it does 60 plus 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon. So a one-prize Palkia V-Star is kind of cool. I think this card's actually decent. It is a Stage 2. Kind of sucks. It is a fire Pokemon, however, you can play it with Magma Basin, though you probably want to play with Area Zero, but you can base into it. I mean, it does some big damage. If both players' benches are full, this Pokemon is going to be doing 260 damage, which is pretty insane numbers to hit, especially because it's a one-prizer. It's offsetting the prize trade really nicely. This actually could be a decent card. You can also play it with Victini if you want to do more damage, so not a bad card. Definitely looking forward to making a video on that one. New Sarah Ledge here does have the attack Cursed Edge. Discard all special energy from all of your opponent's Pokemon. I wanted to highlight this because if you're playing against Lugia, the Sarah Ledge can be very annoying to deal with, right? You can like Cursed Edge all the energy off their Lugia. There's other anti-Lugia cards in the set that are a lot better, but I wanted to highlight this because you could play this with, of course, the Sarah Ledge EX, which is already looking to be a pretty okay deck within our new format. It has the attack Abyssal Flames. For one fire, does 30 damage plus 20 more damage for each energy in your discard pile. So it's similar to like cards like Volcarona V, I think it was, and Victini Prism, where you just put a bunch of energy in the discard pile. Now those Pokemon put the energy back in your deck. This Pokemon, however, gets to leave the energy in the discard. So you just turbo energy discards with cards like Pokestop. There's a Drillbur in the format. There's Research. You obviously Radiant Greninja is really good. Earthen Vessel, Ultra Ball. All these ways to discard energy really quickly, and this card is going to do a ton of damage. 270 HP makes it decently tanky for a Stage 1 Pokemon. And yeah, I like it quite a bit. I think it's going to be a really fun deck to try out. Its other attack can be powered up if you want to play Sparkling Crystal in the deck. If you want to just have a really early game attack, like I kind of like the idea of going Raging Amphamis early on in the game with like Sparkling Crystal, and then in the late game you kind of have that Abyssal Flame because you discarded so much energy. This card can be a one-hit KO machine if played properly. New Scovillain EX. Yes, we have two Scovillains coming out. This one is a fire type, not a grass type. It's got the ability double type, however, where it is then a both grass and fire, so it's literally a grass and fire type. Now, it's not as sneaky as the other Scovillain EX in the format, but it does have the attack Spicy Rage, which are 2 fire energy, does 10 plus 70 more damage for each damage counter on it. Now, if you pair this with like Magma Basin, Gapejaw Bog, Damage Pump, just ways to manipulate damage counters on this, it can hit really, really hard. This card actually could be a pretty decent attacker, and being both a dual type means you can hit for weakness against Charizard, which is nice. Then you're a fire type. Not really any fire weak Pokemon in the meta right now that are relevant, but you know what? It is a really cool attacker that if you can get a ton of damage on it, it's going to hit hard. It's also like in a situation where you don't want to not one-hit KO it. Like if you hit this thing for like 200 damage, Spicy Rage is going to be doing like 1 billion damage in return. So this will be another interesting card to try out with some of the damage modifiers. We have another new ancient Pokemon, an ancient single prize Gouging Fire. I think it's the first Gouging Fire we're getting. That's a one prizer. It's got the attack Blazing Charge, does 100 damage. If your opponent has 4 fewer prizes remaining, the attack does 70 more damage. So 170 damage isn't bad. Will this be good with an ancient box? I'm not too sure because like you're playing 2 different energy types. You're playing both fire and dark. I'm not sure you're going to use it. Though in fairness, 170 is not bad numbers to hit. Though you are short on like Rodom. So you're carrying Lumineon and Squawkabilly, I guess. And you're two-shotting most things. This could be good within the Gouging Fire / Armor Rouge decks, however, as a one-prize attacker. So that's something to keep in mind. So new Paldean Tauros is interesting for control decks. Got the attack Upthrusting Horns. You put 2 energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon Stage 2 into their hand. So really good into Charizard and Dragapult, where you can like put the energy back in your hand. Like if they have a Sparkling Crystal on their Dragapult, you can go like Vacuum, and then Upthrusting Horns, and then put the energy back in their hand, and all of a sudden they're not doing Phantom Dive, or they're not doing Burning Darkness. So this could be a nice one of within Pidgeot control. Also, it does work with Double Turbo, which is nice, and another card we're going to talk about a bit later on in this video. Milotic EX is another decent card. It's got the ability Sparkling Scales to prevent all damage and effects of attacks done this Pokemon from Terra Pokemon. So Ogerpons, Charizard, Dragapult, Pikachu EX, Sarah Ledge EX cannot damage Milotic. Now, there are ways you can get around this. You can obviously play Pokemon that are not Terra Pokemon. If you're playing Pikachu, you might have Miraidon EX in the deck. Or if you're playing Charizard, you can attack with Pidgeot EX. So it's not a foolproof strategy, but it's a very annoying ability. And if you put a bunch of Milotics in play, these like Terra-heavy decks eventually are going to run out of options to attack it. Because Milotic does also have an attack Hypno Splash that does 160 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. So at least with a double turbo, you're doing 140. So then you're dealing with the threats pretty easily, like those Pidgeots. So Milotic will be an annoying card. It might be good within stall and control decks, obviously, as a wall Pokemon. Is it better than Ogerpon, though? In Cornerstone, I should say. I'm not too sure, but it is a decent card still to keep your eye on. This new Walrein here is interesting with Frigid Fangs. For 1 Water Energy, does 60 damage. During your opponent's next turn, Pokemon that have 2 or less energy attached to them cannot attack. So if you're playing against a deck like Charizard, where they don't have a lot of energy on, this card can be very annoying to play against. Could be another like weird like Locky type card. It depends on what deck you're playing against, right? There are decks in the meta like Regidrago that will have a lot of energy in play, but then there's other decks like Charizard or even Dragapult where they're probably going to have like 2 or fewer energy in play at a time, especially if you play this with Crushing Hammers and stuff. It could be kind of annoying. This new Black-Kyurem EX is fascinating. It's really good against Regidrago V-Star. It's got the attack Ice Age. For 3 colorless energy, does 90 damage, and if your opponent's active is a Dragon Pokemon, it is now immediately paralyzed. So the way I've seen Black-Kyurem played is within Lost Box decks, because what you can do is Lost Box struggles really badly against Drago, but you can now have a way to instantly paralyze them with Kyurem. Now, 90 damage is a little underwhelming, but the paralysis is nice. My issue with this, though, is against Regidrago, they can go switch Prime Catcher. They have 2 switching outs in the deck. Not to mention, if they hold their Legacy Star, they're most likely just going to move out of the paralysis anyways. I don't think it's a perfect counter to Regidrago, though maybe with like a combination of Roxanne and Iono, this could be good. So we'll have to see, but it's not a bad answer to Drago. It might be playable in like Lost Box. This new Quaquaval here has the ability Up Tempo. You must put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck in order to use the ability. Once you're in turn, draw cards to get 5 in your hand. Very similar to an old Claydol card that was really, really good. Similar to Bibarel too. Now, it is a stage 2, which holds it back, obviously, but the ability is nice because you are able to draw cards. You can obviously use Quaquavals. You can use multiple in a turn, which is cool. It's like a Wish version of Bibarel Skwovet, but it's not as linear as like setting up multiple Pokemon, and Skwovet sometimes can get eaten up by Phantom Diver. This card doesn't. So I don't know. We'll have to see on that one if it ends up being good at all. This new Shempao here is kind of cool. It's got the ability Snow Sink. When you play it from your hand on your bench, discard a stadium in place. Kind of like the old Pumpkaboo. Now, Pumpkaboo saw play because it was good against Path to Peak. Path to Peak is not in the format anymore, so I don't know if this card is good. You could use it to get rid of, like, Area Zero, which is kind of nice. I think it's a worse Lost Vacuum, though, because there isn't really a good way to grab it, because you do have to play it from your hand on the bench. You can't just Nest Ball for it and use the ability, so it's not as good as Pumpkaboo was, because it was in the format with Quick Ball and Level Ball. But we'll have to see if this card is good, because we need a stadium to be in play that's relevant to discard. The only one I can think of is really just the Area Zero. I guess Jamming Tower and Temple could be a nice, but I don't think Lugia is going to play this card. All right, the mascot of the set, and probably one of the best EXs in the set, Pikachu EX. This card is very playable. Now, it has the ability Resolute Heart. If this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, it is not knocked out, and its remaining HP instead is 10. Now, that ability is really annoying, because if you're playing against a deck that has literally no way to break the ability, this ability can make Pikachu very tanky. It has 200 HP, so it is easy to KO in one hit, but with that ability, effectively, you have to 2-hit KO it. And then it has the attack Topaz Bolt that does 300 damage, and you have to discard 3 energy from the Pikachu. Now, it does need a Lightning, Grass, and Metal, so the ways I've seen this played is with this new Magneton we're about to look at, and then also good within Lost Box. You can Mirage Gate to your Pikachu. The ability is just really nice. You could even play this within like a stall deck where you can literally infinitely penny loop it over and over again, and the Pikachu can never get knocked out. Now, it's not a perfect ability. There are ways to break the ability. Of course, Dusclops, Dusknoir breaks it. Hawlucha, Radiant Alakazam combo, Phantom Dive can like set damage up on the bench. There are ways around Pikachu's ability. It's not a surefire ability, but if your opponent literally can't break the ability, then this card could be very annoying to play against. And it is a pretty strong card. 300 damage is a lot of damage. I mean, you're one-shotting most big basics. You're one-shotting stuff like Pidgeot. Play this with like Defiance or Max Belt. You're hitting, pretty tough, pretty hard into Charizard and Dragapult, which is really, really cool. But what it will see play with is most likely this Magneton. Now, this card is really broken. It has the ability Overvolt Discharge. Once your turn, you can attach it to 3 basic energy from your discard pile to your Lightning Pokemon in any way you like, and then you knock out the Magneton. We all know these knockout abilities are really good right now with Counter Catcher and this new Counter Gain card that's coming back also within this set. Now, Magneton, I think, is good with Pikachu because you can just use it over and over to power up your Pikachu. EX's Topaz Bolt attack. But the big thing is this card can make you get an Iron Hands out really quickly. If you can discard 3 energy, which probably isn't too hard to do in this format, you can immediately Magneton, power up Iron Hands in a single turn, and that is pretty scary. Instead of relying on generators and Mirage Gates to charge it up, you can just overvolt discharge the hands instead. Now, giving up a prize card is awkward, but when your opponent can't deal with Iron Hands immediately, that thing can just run your opponent over, and a lot of the time, that's just going to win you the game. So being able to immediately make an Iron Hands possible is kind of scary. You can even like use Counter Catcher with it to like Counter Catcher up the best option your opponent had to deal with hands, and then maybe amp knock it out is kind of scary. This card is definitely really, really good. I don't know if we need another one of these Pokemon in the format that knocks itself out. It's not as bad as Dusknoir in my opinion, but it is still pretty insane, especially with Iron Hands in the format. This new Rotom is another really cool card against or for control decks. Now, it has the attack Crushing Pulse. Your opponent reveals their hand, you discard all items and tools you find there. Now, that's kind of dirty. That's like Eerie on steroids, right? Because like Eerie gets rid of 2 items, sometimes Eerie misses, but Rotom is always going to be probably discarding anything you see there because you get to discard more than just 2 cards. Tools is also kind of nasty because you can get rid of cards like Forest Seal, Sparkling Crystal, Rescue Board, kind of a dirty attack. This card is really strong with installing control. Because if your opponent just is sitting on a bunch of rare candies, you can go like Rotom plus Misfortune Sisters instead of going Eerie. That gives you a lot of item discard in one turn. This card is really terrifying. Definitely not a card I'm looking forward to for control decks. But yeah, just a pretty dirty card. You can also obviously get rid of switches and stuff for those decks. Just a very powerful card for control decks altogether. We have a new 1-prize Coco here with the attack prize count. If you have more prize remaining than your opponent, you get to do 180 damage. I'm not sure if this card is any good. Could be good within Lost Box, Lightning type attacker, or you can play within like Miraidon maybe as a nice 1-prize attacker. It does 180, so you are hitting relevant numbers into some Pokemon, which is good. Can one-shot Mew EXs, right? We are getting Kilowattrel EX. This was like a gym promo, I think, in Japan. It does have the attack return charge, switches Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do attach up to 2 basic lightnings from your hand to this Pokemon, you can maybe put this into like Iron Thorns or something. It's probably one of the weakest EXs in the set, though. Though it does have the attack Thunder Lance that does 40 damage, does 40 more damage, reach light energy on this Pokemon. If you can find a way to charge up energy on this card could hit hard. I guess you could Magneton to it to put 3 energy on it. There's Generator, obviously. You could just load this thing up with energy. Maybe this card would have been a little bit better if Flaffy still existed. For now, it's like kind of a mediocre EX card, but we are still getting Kilowattrel EX, so, you know, keep your eye out for that if we ever see like a big lightning Pokemon in the format. We got another future Miraidon in the set here with the attack Code Protect. For lightning and colorless energy, does 40 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to each of your future Pokemon by opponent's EXs. Now, the problem is if Miraidon leaves the active spot, this effect ends, so it's probably not that great. Because, like, you can just get bundled or bossed or prime catchered or counter catchered, and then all of a sudden this attack is kind of pointless. It only does 40 damage, so yeah, you can stack it with, like, Crown and stuff and Booster Capsule, but I don't know if the effect is worth it. It gets countered really hard by Gust, right, which kind of sucks. This new Togekiss is pretty controversial. It's got the ability Wonder Kiss. When your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out, you flip a coin of heads, take 1 more prize card. Now, thankfully, you can't stack the ability. You can't just have, like, multiple of these in play and use the ability. But it is a really annoying card because, like, randomly your opponent could just win the game just on a coin flip if this gets lucky. Now, I don't know how good this is actually, but there are decks that can use it. Obviously, you can play this with, like, Briar and Dusknoir to take extra prizes, potentially. You can play it within Charizard. Like, any deck that can afford to play, like, an extra Stage 2 line randomly probably gets to play Togekiss. And sometimes games can literally get decided on Togekiss's ability. I don't want this card to blow up and be popular, but we'll have to see on that one. Definitely not a bad card to hold on to because it could be good one day. This new Azumarill is also a very, very strong 1-prize attacker. It's got the ability Glistening Bubbles. If you have any Terra Pokemon in play, double-edged, gets to be used for 1 Psychic Energy. Now, it doesn't need 4 energy. It does 230 damage, but with that ability, you just put like a Pikachu EX or a Cornerstone Ogerpon in play, and then all of a sudden, the attack can be used for just a single Psychic Energy, meaning that Azumarill is going to do some big damage. Now, it's a great 1-prize attacker. It does 230. You're knocking out a lot of big basics. You can play this with, like, Max Belt, Defiance Band, Vitality Man to hit even higher numbers into, like, Raging Bolt and Pidgeot and stuff. So definitely a really strong 1-prize card. I don't know how good it'll be in a format with, like, Dusknoir and Briar, but it's a nice 1-prize attacker that can do some big damage for sure. Definitely not too bad. This new Smoochum's kind of interesting here. It's a baby Pokemon. Well, not really. It is a baby Pokemon. It's not a baby Pokemon in the card game, but it has the attack Delightful Kiss. For no energy, you can search check for up to 2 basic Psychic Energy and attach them to one of your bench Pokemon. That's not a bad attack. For a setup attack, that ain't terrible. It doesn't need any energy at all, which is nice. There's already enough energy acceleration in the format with, like, Xatu and Gardevoir, but it could be good, man. It's not a bad attack, just saying. New Latias is a great support Pokemon for basic decks. Got that ability Skyliner. Your basic Pokemon in play have no retreat cost, meaning that this is really good within decks like Miraidon, Raging Bolt, Gouging Fire. All these big basic decks, other than probably Roaring Moon because I already have Petron, have a really nice support Pokemon with Latias. Just having a Fur Tree cost is really nice to have. It makes it easy to move out of the active spot. It doesn't feel as bad now to bench like Mewtwo EX, though. I think Pikachu is going to replace Mewtwo and Miraidon anyways. It is a nice ability. I think it's a great support Pokemon. You could even play within Lost Box to give Comfeys for retreat. I don't know if that's relevant at all, but I mean, this Pokemon can be powered up through Mirage Gate, so maybe even Lost Box will start playing Latias EX. All right, we have a new Uxie Mesprit Azelf line. This new Uxie puts 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Not a bad spread attack. The main trait is going to be the Mesprit and the Azelf, though. You got Guardian Burst for 2 Psychic Energy. Does 160 damage, and if you don't have an Azelf and an Uxie on your bench, the attack does nothing. Pretty easy to get these guys out through Buddy Poffin, obviously, and then you can hit hard. And then we have the Azelf here, which has the attack Neurokinesis, which does 10 plus 10 more damage, reach damage counter on all of your opponent's Pokemon. So once you spread a ton of damage on the board, this card can come in and hit really, really hard. So it could be a fun little one prize deck here with the Lake Trio there. All right, let's see here. New Cofagrigus is kind of cool. It's got the attack Law of the Underworld, puts 6 damage counters on each Pokemon and play with an ability. It's very similar to an old Weavile card with Rule of Evil. That card did see a bit of play. This card is similar and obviously can be very strong into like decks that bench a lot of Ogre Pawns and Fez, obviously Mew, Squawkabilly, all those Pokemon. It's like a stronger version of Frostlass because it can get more damage on the board at once, except it's not a stacking ability. It's an attack. Not a bad card, though. Could be good with Cofagrigus EX too, keep in mind. New Meowstic is interesting with its ability Beckoning Tail. You must discard a Chilly Teaser Toy, or Chill Teaser Toy, that's what it's called, from your hand in order to use the ability. Once you're in turn, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon in the active spot. It's a boss's order ability, though you have to discard this item card. This item is coming out in this new set. Now, we haven't seen a boss reprint yet, so boss will rotate when Scarlet and Violet base set and Paldea Evolve rotate, meaning that there is a chance that this might have to be one of the main forms of Gusting. There's another card in the format, though, that also might replace boss when boss rotates if we don't get it reprinted in time. Sylveon EX is really cool, too. It's got the attack Magical Charm, does 160 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, attacks used by the defending Pokemon do 100 less damage. Now, your opponent can switch or retreat and then undo the effect, but the main trait of Sylveon is that Angel Light attack, which for a Water, Lightning, and a Psychic Energy, choose up to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and shuffle those Pokemon and all cards attach them back into your opponent's deck. You can't use Angel Light twice in a row, but if you're playing against Lugia, for example, you can literally just put the Archeops back in the deck, and then all of a sudden, there's no way they can put Archeops back into play because they've already done Summoning Star. Really good against Stage 2s like Dragapult, Charizard, and Pidgeot. A very annoying attack. This card definitely seems pretty strong. You can charge it up, thankfully, with like the Sparkling Crystal, Crispin combo. Could be an annoying attacker in the format. Definitely keep your eye out on Sylveon. Not a bad card at all. We have a new Dedenne, which is basically just the Regieleki we already have. It's a worse Regieleki because Regieleki has more HP, but when that rotates, this could be good for control decks, putting a trainer from discard pile back into your hand. Palossand EX is quite interesting with that attack Sand Tomb, does 160 damage, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. And then you got the attack Barret Jail. Put damage counters on each of your opponent's bench Pokemon until its remaining HP is 100. So you can play this with like some crazy spread attacks. Like there's a new Flygon we'll look at very soon, and that can be really cool. You can charge this up with obviously Crystal and Crispin, and I mean if your opponent overbenches or you use accompanying Flute and force things into play, this attack can be very cool because then you can like board wipe your opponent, take 6 prizes at once or something, which is kind of nice. Some interesting things you can do there for sure. We have a new one prize Fluttermane. It's not going to replace the other one in the format in Ancient Box. It does have the attack Perplexing Transfer, move all damage counters from one of your bench Ancient Pokemon to your opponent's active. I don't know if that's any good. Playing it with like Raging Bull could be kind of funny, but I don't think it's great in that deck. Even though the healing can be nice, don't get me wrong. New Annihilate here could be nice to play in like an Annihilate deck. It's got the attack Destined Fight. Both active Pokemon are knocked out. Not a bad attack, right? Knocking out both active Pokemon isn't terrible. You do have to give up a prize, obviously, but like you can go into like a Mimikyu or something like a wall. And then that's like not too bad. Yeah, new Flygon EX here. Another decent new EX card in the set. It's got the attack Reversing Storm for 1 fighting energy, does 130, and then you switch it with a bench Pokemon. Going into a wall Pokemon could be the option. And then you got the attack Sonic Peridot. This attack does 100 damage to each of your opponent's EXs and Pokemon V. Now, sadly, this attack can be blocked by the Terra effect, so you're not going to be hitting Ogre Pawns and Charizard and Pikachu, which is a little annoying. But this could be fun with Palossand. You go Palossand, and then you go Flygon. If your opponent's board is all EXs and Vs, you can potentially take 6 prizes in one turn. This could be a fun spread card. If your opponent doesn't stop Flygon in time, this could literally just win the game in like 2 or 3 attacks, which is really interesting, so not bad. Now, Gastrodon is an interesting card. I'm glad we got this card because I think we needed ability lock in the format. It's got the ability Sticky Bind. As long as this Pokemon is on the bench stage 2 Pokemon, both your opponents have no ability. So when this thing is sitting on the bench, you can shut off stuff like Archeops, Charizard, Well, I guess Charizard doesn't matter, but you're shutting off Archeop, shutting off Gardevoir EX, some bench sitting EXs right there. You're also going to be shutting off Pidgeot EX, which is nice. Dusknoir on the bench also gets shut off, which is really, really nice too. It's a nice ability to have. The problem is it does have a 3 retreat. You can easily get stuck in the active spot and get trapped, which is bad. You probably have to play this with like prime catchers and multiple switches. You can have multiple Gastron in play, though. So if you have 2 in play, one gets bossed out and your opponent can use their abilities, while there's another one already sitting on the bench, right? So that's kind of the trade-off I think Gastrodon gets to have, which is kind of neat. Definitely not a bad card at all. A lot of these other cards aren't great. This new Koraidon could be good within Ancient Box. It's got the attack Unrelenting Onslaught for 2 colorless energy, does 30 damage, and if one of your other ancient Pokemon attacked last turn, stacked does 150 more damage. Now, I have been informed you can't use Koraidons over and over again through its own attack. You can't loop it, but it could be cool with an Ancient Box. 180 damage is a lot to do. Also decent in Raging Bolt. 180, like I said, just really good numbers. You're knocking out a lot of Pokemon in one hit. You're hitting really hard. Not a bad card at all. I am super excited for Hydreigon EX. Not only is it the mascot on the channel and it's my favorite Pokemon, this card actually does seem to be decent. It is a Dark-type Stage 2 Pokemon with 2 attacks. Crushing Headbutt does 200 damage. Discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Not a bad attack. Milling 3 cards can be insane. I mean, sometimes you can mill a lot of very important resources that your opponent needed and they cannot recover. The main thing we're going to try to use, though, is that Obsidian attack, which is 130 damage. Then this attack does 130 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So kind of like Palossand and Flygon, there's a lot of like big spread attacks in this set apparently, but this attack can be very strong, where once again, depending on what matchup you're playing against, this attack can win the game in 2 attacks. Now, Hydreigon is very tanky. 330 HP is a lot. It does need a lot of energy, though. It needs Psychic, Dark, Metal, Colorless energy. Now, you can play this with Sparkling Crystal or Counter Gain, Dark Patch to build it up, Xatu. There are ways you can charge up Hydreigon really quickly. And like I said, if you don't stop it, this attack can literally like win the game in like 2 turns, which is really scary. So definitely keep your eye out on Hydreigon EX. It definitely seems like it could be a decent card when it comes out. I'm excited for that one for sure, because I'm a huge Hydreigon fan. His new Grafaiai does have the attack Energize Graffiti, does 4 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So if you're playing against a deck where your opponent floods the board with energy, this attack can hit some insanely high numbers. So because you can Dark Patch to it, right? So it's not a bad way to like, it's got an energy acceleration engine, but I'm not sure how good it's actually going to be. Growlithe EX. This could be an archetype to keep your eye on. Definitely a card you probably want to get when it releases. It has the ability to assemble Alloy. When you play it from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, during your turn you may attach up to 2 basic metal energy from your discard pile to your metal Pokemon in any way you like. Not a bad ability. Energy acceleration is nice. The main trait is going to be building up itself, however, because it's got the attack Metal Defender. That does a nice solid 220 damage. And then during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon has no weakness. So hey, if you happen to play against Gouging Fire or Ceruledge, boom, this Pokemon is harder to 1-hit KO. 220 is not bad. Plays with Vitality Band to hit higher numbers. Maybe play with Dusclops or something to like one-shot Raging Bolt. And now the nice thing is there's a Duraludon in the format that has that Rage ability, or Rage Attack, Outrage Attack, whatever you call it. Not this one, but there's another one. So there's another Duraludon you can play that evolves from it, right? So you go Duraludon, and it does like 70 plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on it. You play this with Relicanth, so what can happen is your opponent doesn't one-shot Growlithe, which this card is pretty bulky because there is like a stadium in the format, Rigid Band you can play it with, where it just sponges the hit. You play Relicanth, Duraludon, copy Duraludon stack, 70 plus 10 for each damage counter on it, and take a massive knockout out of nowhere. That's the idea behind this Growlithe. So this is probably going to be an archetype when it releases, so keep that in mind. We have a future 1-prize Iron Crown here with Deleting Slash. It's 40 damage. If your opponent has 3 or more bench Pokemon, the attack does 80 more damage. 120 for 2 energy. Again, you can play it within like a future box deck if there's any metal weak Pokemon in the format. There's one Pokemon I guess I didn't skip over. Is it not coming out in this set? Huh, maybe not. There's a new Klinklang. I don't see it here, though. I guess this Klinklang isn't coming out in this set, actually. Interesting. Huh. All right, moving on to the Dragon types. Of course, Regidrago V-Star will like them. One of them I think that could be good is the Alolan Exeggutor EX. Now, it has the attack Tropical Frenzy that does 150 damage for grass and water. You may attach any number of basic energy cards from your hand to your Pokemon any way you like. Not a bad energy acceleration attack. Keep in mind, once again, Regidrago V-Star can copy this card. And then you got the attack Swinging Fiend. Flip a coin if heads. Knock out your opponent's active basic Pokemon. If tails, knock out one of your opponent's bench basic Pokemon. So you're either going to knock out their active basic or a bench basic Pokemon. Within Regidrago, this could be pretty funny if you're against an all basic deck like Raging Bolt, right? You can just go copy Alolan Exeggutor. Oh, I look at that. I knock out your Ogerpon or Fez on the bench, or I just knock out your active Raging Bolt. So this card might be good within Regidrago V-Star. We'll have to see on that one. Just keep in mind, this could be good within Drago, right? So you want to potentially look at that. New Palkia here with Space Crush. There's 4 damage for Space Energy attached to this Pokemon. Not sure this card will be good. You could maybe power it with, like, what's his face? Excalibur. Just wanted to point that out there. You're getting a new Flapple and Appleton. Flapple here has got acidic spit. Does 20 damage, reach damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. If you can get a bunch of damage on it, maybe play with like Palisand or something and then blow them up with the Flapple. Then Appleton here too does have the attack Melting Sweetness. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't attack. Again, keep in mind you can play these within Regidrago V-Star if you want. This new Eternus I think could be nice within Lost Box. Got the attack World Ender for a Fire and 2 Dark Energy. Does 230 damage. Discard a statement play if you can't. This attack does nothing. Again, this might not be bad within Lost Box. I think that's probably the best way to play it, to be honest with you. You can Mirage Gate to it, and you can World Ender for 230. It does a lot of damage. I mean, 230 is the magic number against stuff like Iron Hands. Not a bad card. And it's even first attack isn't bad either. It can do 1 for 90 if your opponent's active happens to be an EX Pokemon, which is also really cool. This new Tatsugiri EX is quite wild. Surprise Pump isn't anything special, but the main attack is going to be that Cinnabar Lure attack for a Fire, Water, and a Dark Energy. Look at the top 10 cards of your deck. You may put any number of Pokemon you find there onto your bench. If you can find a way to power this thing up quickly, that attack can be nice, and you can put a bunch of Pokemon in play. You can put Stage 2s in play, which is kind of the big draw of it. The problem is this card needs so much energy to be powered up, but again, if you can find a way to get this going, this Tatsugiri might actually end up being like a decent, fun, like meme deck. Probably bad deck Friday material, to be honest with you, but we'll have to see it. This new Eevee coming out here, it's got boosted evolution. Well, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, it can evolve during your first turn or the turn you play it. This means you can put like a Sylveon EX down, and you know what? We are probably getting more Eevee evolution EXs very soon. I think I got announced we might be in like a special set or something. So keep in mind, more evolutions coming out are good with this Eevee. Slaking EX is quite strong too. It's got the attack Born to Slack. If your opponent's active, if your opponent has no EX or V Pokemon in play, this Pokemon cannot attack. Let's be real, they're probably going to have an EX or V in play. And then it's got the attack Great Swing that does 280 damage, discard energy from this Pokemon. This card is really strong. It's got 340 HP. It is a stage 2, but that ability is really good. A lot of the time, the ability will always be live. There's not that many good single price decks in the meta right now due to how popular like Dusknoir is, right? They're kind of just gate-kept. So mostly it's just 2-price decks. Now, yeah, you could play against like Lost Box, and then I guess this won't work, but who cares about that? Because this card is quite strong, and I think this actually will see a bit of play. 280 is also really good numbers. You know, if you play this with Double Turbo, you're doing 260, but if you don't play with Double Turbo, this thing is going to be 1-hit KOing stuff like Regidragos and Lugias. And again, 340 HP makes this thing quite a bulky boy, that's for sure. You're even like killing Blood Moon Ursalunas and stuff. Slaking is very strong. One thing I want to note about this set, a lot of the EXs within this set are a lot better than Stellar Crown's EXs. Like, Stellar Crown had, what, Terapagos? That might be it. Like, all the EXs in the set were kind of mid, apart from Terapagos. This set actually has the EXs that look to be a lot better and will be more playable over, like, Galvantula and Cinderace, right? So I just wanted to keep that in mind. That's why I think this set is better than Stellar Crown, because there's just more playable cards in it overall. We're getting a new Boufflant. Keep in mind this does work with the other Boufflant in the format that reduces damage. Nothing too special here, though. I don't think it's any good. Just wanted to point that out. I do like this Mousehold here with the attack Familial March, sorry. Search deck for up to 2 of any combination of Mousehold and Mousehold DX and put them on your bench. So if you want to get the Mouses out, this could be a good attack. Also, there's a Mousehold that does damage for each of your Mousehold in play. So it could be a good way to get them out. Though it's a Mousehold that puts Mouseholds in play. I'm not sure how valuable that is. A couple more EXs to look at here. Cyclozar EX, looking at it at face value, it doesn't look very strong, but I think this is actually not a bad card. It does have a colorless typing, so you can play it with Boufflant. It's a Terra Pokemon, so you can play it with Area 0, and also Glass Trumpet as a way to build it up, because you got the attack Breakthrough that does 130, and then 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And then you got Zircon Road, which again, you can power up with Glass Trumpet. Does 180 damage, and you may draw 5 cards. I mean, drawing 5 cards is pretty good. That makes you pretty Iono-proof, I want to say. Not to mention, like, you get Iono'd, you can do this and draw 5 cards. I'm just saying, because, yeah, you can get Iono'd after you draw the 5 cards, but then, you know, this thing can bulk a hit. Like I said, play this with Boufflant, play this with Bravery Charm. This card could actually be a decent card. I don't think Cyclozar is bad at all. There is enough support behind it where I think this card is not just a filler bulk EX Pokemon. What is a filler bulk EX Pokemon? And probably the worst EX in the set is the Flamigo EX. This card's got the attack Precise Beak, does 30 damage. If this Pokemon, your opponent's active Pokemon, have the same amount of energy, does 100 more damage. 130 damage is nothing to write home about, nothing too crazy. And then Brave Bird, 4 for 200. By far the worst EX card within this set. But other than that, all the other EXs, apart from maybe Kilowattrel 2, are like not the worst cards ever. This new Terapagos is also decent. It's got the attack Prism Charge for 1 colorless energy. Search your deck for up to 3 basic energies of different types and attach them to your Terra Pokemon in any way you like. Not a bad attack to use going second to charge up a lot of your big Terra Pokemon, like Pikachu EX or something. So could be a decent card to charge up your Pokemon. Now, we got a lot of ace specs in this set. And the first one is that Amulet of Hope. If the Pokemon this card's statue is knocked out by damage from an attack, search deck for up to 3 cards, put them in your hand. It's literally Radiant Jirachi on a tool card. Now, of course, your opponent can vacuum or jamming tower to stop this, but if your opponent does walk into the Amulet of Hope, this card could be a great way to just set your board up because you get a bunch of stage 2s out via rare candy. Get any card you want, basically. I don't know if this card is any good, and I don't know the best way to play it, to be honest with you, but it is cool to note that Radiant Jirachi's ability got turned into in a spec. Babiri Berry. Oh my god, that is a freaking tongue twister. It's not that good, but Brilliant Blender is actually pretty good. Search check for up to 5 cards and discard them. It is Battle Compressor, but even better. Now, getting up to 5 cards is good. You can play this within Ancient Box or United Wings. Those are decks that don't mind discarding cards really quickly. You know, play this in Lugia too. There you go. You can guarantee yourself double Archeops discard, then you sacrifice not playing Legacy. So I'm not sure if that's worth it, but Brilliant Blender is not a bad card. In fact, one would say it's actually a pretty brilliant card. Call Bell's interesting. This could be good within turbo decks. You can only use this if you go second and on your first turn. Search check for a supporter, reveal it, and put it in your hand. So again, this could be good within like a turbo deck like Turbo Moon to guarantee yourself turn 1 Sada. Or even like Raging Bolt could play this to guarantee that turn 1 Sada. Here's the Chill Teaser toy that works with the Meow Stick with Gust. Not a very good card. You can only use it going second. Put an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon into their hand. I mean, there's too much energy excel in the format for this to get any value. You're just going to use it as filler for Meow Stick. Clamont's Quick Wit here heals 60 damage from each of your lightning Pokemon. This might be sneaky in like Miraidon to like heal around Dragapult. This could make your Dragapult matchup a bit better, so maybe this could be good. I'm not sure how good it'll be there, though, over playing like Boss and Arven to like tempo your opponent, but you know what? It could fix your Dragapult matchup a little bit for Miraidon, but other than that, it's not great. What I do think is decent, though, is the Colberberry here. If the Pokemon this card statue is damaged by an attack from a dark Pokemon, take 60 less damage, then discard the card. This is nice against Charizard. Making Charizard do 60 less damage is actually not too bad. This might be one of the better berries we have just because of how relevant Charizard EX is. And if Charizard can't remove it, this card could actually be really, really good into Charizard. It can potentially deny them a KO. So I definitely like this card, and it is definitely decent into Charizard, especially if they're not playing Vacuum or Jamming Tower. A great card that just got reprinted is Counter Gain. We got Counter Catcher. Now we got Counter Gain. If you're behind in prizes, you can attach it to a Pokemon, and its attack can be used for 1 colorless less. There's a lot of Pokemon that get a lot of value out of this. Like, there's a Buffon in the format that can use this with a double turbo. Arc V-Star could play with a double turbo. You know, there you go. Some cool concepts. But I think this card is really good. There are a lot of Pokemon that are going to get value out of Counter Gain. I definitely think you want to get a playset of these when it releases because it is just a very strong card. It's good with Dusknoir, really good with Magneton, just really strong card. And yeah, this card game reprinted is insane. There's a lot of Pokemon that are really going to use it. This is definitely going to be a pretty broken card. Cyrano here. Cyrano. So check for up to 3 EX Pokemon, reveal them, put in your hand. Adventure Discovery kind of just came back. I don't think this card is great right now. There's just better cards you can play with it, but play instead of it. But who knows? Maybe this card will be good one day. Maybe like Arc Ralladon will play it. I don't know. Deduction Kit here. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Put them on top, back in any order you want. Then put them. Wait, hold on. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Put them back in any order, or shuffle them. Okay, that's what I did. I read that wrong. But yeah, not a bad card. You can, you know, rig the top of your deck to be good for Generator or any like discard attack. You can, you know, play around Iona with this card, which is nice too. So it's not bad at all. Don't know what deck will play it. Maybe like Snorlax, maybe. Dragon Elixir is interesting. Heal 60 damage from your active Dragon Pokemon. I mean, could be decent within Regidrago to make it bulkier. I don't know how relevant that's going to be, though, but if you're leaning more into, like, Guja, maybe this card will be good in that. Maybe it'll be playable within Raging Bolt. Just could be nice into, like, those spread decks, right? Drasna here. Shuffle your hand in your deck. Flip a coin if heads. Draw 8. If tails, draw 3. Probably too risky to be good, though, if you flip heads. I'm just saying. Drawing a lot of cards. Drayton here. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Reveal a Pokemon and trainer you find there and put them in your hand. Not a bad effect. I don't know if it's that good, though. I think Hassel is just a better card that does something similar to this, though your opponent does need to take a knockout for it to be good, but I don't think Drayton is great. I think Arven's just a better card. I don't know. Dustball reprint's kind of cool. Lugia might play it. Look at the bottom 7 cards of your deck. Reveal a Pokemon you find there and put in your hand. Like I said, I think Lugia will probably play it just to be able to, like, if you know an Archeop's got Iona to the bottom of the deck, you can get it back with Dustball to guarantee it in the hand. But other than that, I don't know if it's any good. A card that I'm excited for is Energy Search Pro. This card is great with Goldengo EX. Search check for any number of basic energy cards, different types, reveal them, and put them in your hand. So yeah, you just play one of each energy. You go Energy Search Pro for, like, Grass, Water, Fighting, Dark, Fire, Psychic, Water, Lightning. Put them all in your hand at once, and then Goldengo for, like, 350 damage out of nowhere. That's the best part about this card. It is a great card for Goldengo. Is it better than sacrificing potentially Hyper Roma or Prime Catcher Palkia Greninja? Maybe, but I think Goldengo actually will love this card. It is literally made for Goldengo, which is so exciting. Now, Gravity Mountain is really strong. Each Stage 2 Pokemon I play, both turns your opponent get minus 30 HP. Now, if you were to play this versus Charizard, Charizard has 300 HP, easier to one-hit KO, and then Pidgeot, of course, goes down to 250 HP. Ironically, this could be good within Charizard to counter Charizard Mirror, but this is also really good within big basic decks to make it easier to one-shot those Pokemon. A very annoying stadium to have for Stage 2 decks. Even, against Lugia, you can make the Archeops have 120 HP, and then you can Mirage Barrage both of them and knock them out. Sneaky play right there I wanted to mention. Jasmine's Gaze could be interesting as a tech supporter. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. So, on a winning turn, you can play this card and then deny your opponent the ability to one-hit KO your active. I don't know if this is actually going to be that good, but there could be a deck that could utilize it. Any tank deck like Goodra or Garganical maybe could play this too. It could be just a nice way to deny your opponent a prize card at the end of the game. Depending on the matchup, this could be a crucial card, but probably not good right now. Now, this card could replace Boss when Boss rotates, Leases Appeal. Switch in one of your opponent's bench-based Pokemon to the active spot. If you do, the new active Pokemon is not confused. This card might be good if Boss rotates. I don't know if it'll be good right away, because I don't know how good the confusion is going to be right away. Because, Boss is just a lot better, because it only works on basic Pokemon. But again, if Boss rotates and we don't have a gusting card in the format other than Prime Catcher, Lease's Appeal might end up being a gusting card, because, big basics like Squawk, Mew, and Fez will still be in the format. Lively Stadium is also really good, especially with Raging Bolt and Miraidon. Each basic Pokemon in play, both your opponents gets plus 30 HP. Raging Bolt now has 270 HP. With a Bravery Charm, we'll have 250 HP. Kind of a ridiculous stadium card for Raging Bolt. This card is very powerful in my opinion, and it's going to be another nice stadium to have in the Stadium War race for big basic decks. Meddling Memo here. Your opponent counts the number of cards in your hand, shuffles those cards, and puts them to the bottom of the deck. And if they do, they draw that many cards. So if you combine this with Eerie, a way to look at your opponent's hand, you can force your opponent's good hand to the bottom of the deck. Could be good within Control Snorlax. I don't see any other decks it'll be good in. Megaton Blower is super anti-Lugia. Discard all Pokemon Tools Special Energy from all of your opponent's Pokemon. And you even get to discard a Stadium in play just to rub it in. This could be good with, against Lugia, because you just force your opponent to lose all their energies and their tools. You can play this with Sylveon and then completely leave Lugia stranded with nothing in play, which is kind of dirty. So this is not bad against Terapagos to get rid of their double turbos and their Area 0. So a sneaky good ace spec. I don't know if it'll see play because there's just better options, but if Lugia continues to be BDIF, this could be good to have. Miracle Headset, I think, is probably the weakest ace spec in the set. Put up the 2 supporters from discard pile in your hand. Nothing too crazy about that. Palpat, I think, is just a better card. Though this could be good with an Ancient Dex to get Soda back guaranteed. Maybe it could be good in Snorlax to get back Penny and Silene and Yell's Cheer, but I don't know if this card is really worth playing over other cards from the format. Pasho Berry isn't bad either, because there are good water Pokemon in the meta. The same thing as the other Berry. Attached to a Pokemon, it'll take 6 heals damage from your opponent's water Pokemon. Could be good against Palkia, V-Star, maybe Shempao, but mostly Palkia is the big one. This card does block. Precious Trolley here is kind of cool. Search your deck for up to any number of basic Pokemon and put them on your bench. This is easily the best setup card in the format. Play this within Charizard with Arven, and you can fill your board up turn 1. Because this also does get V, so you can get Rotom V with it, which is kind of nuts. This could be good in Regis too, to build up your deck for Regis. You get all the Regis out in one turn. This card is nuts in my opinion. Easily the best setup card we've ever seen. Literally because you can Arven for it, which is ridiculous. You could literally go Arven, Precious Trolley, Force Seal Stone, get Rotom, and then Force Seal. Oh my god, it is a really good setup card. I think this card might be playable within stuff like Charizard and Regis. Very good ace spec to have. Arguably one of the best ace specs in the set, to be honest with you. Another ace spec that I think is very strong that might see niche play, but I think at some point will be playable is Scramble Switch. This card did get reprinted, but it allows you to switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, move any amount of energy from that Pokemon you move to the bench to the new active Pokemon. Could be good in decks that like to have the sneaky good switch effect, and you can build up a new Pokemon. Something like a Dialga V-Star this card could be funny with. Definitely a really strong ace spec. If somebody can find a way to break it, this card seems really good. Even in a Terrestrial deck, maybe it could be good. But you probably want to play Crystal instead, right? So Surfer is interesting. I think this card is nice within Charizard Baby, and also could be good within Iron Valiant. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, and if you do, you draw cards and you have 5 in your hand. It's a free switch effect. Switching's pretty good. There's cards in the format that stop you from retreating and playing the game. It's a free way to switch. You also get to draw a couple cards, so it's kind of a draw supporter switch in one. I like it quite a bit. I think it might be nice within Iron Valiant decks, right? So that's one of the big ways. This new TM is mid, Floor Light. Discard all energy from this Pokemon, heal all damage from each of your Terra Pokemon. I mean, man, I don't think you're ever really going to get a lot of value out of this card, unfortunately. It's just nothing too crazy. Terra Orb is very strong, though. Search deck for a Terra Pokemon and put in your hand. Insane. Get a Charizard, get a Dragapult, get a Pikachu for free. Or any of the new big Terra Pokemon like Sarah Ledge, which will probably really like this card, and even Hydreigon and stuff. Very strong ball search card. Not great in every deck because you can't grab the support stuff like Pidgeot, Fez, and stuff, but very good for finding specifically Terra Pokemon. Very, very strong card for any Terra deck for sure. time, I don't think is very good. And we got Enriching Energy here. Another A-Spec that I thought was mid at first, but I actually think could be good within decks like Control. When you attach them in your hand to a Pokemon, draw 4 cards. So if you play this with like Pidgeot V, you can, or the Dunsparce anyways, you can put it on, draw 4 cards, draw cards with Dunsparce, or then shuffle those Pokemon back in the deck, and then you can redo that combo over and over again and draw a bunch of cards. It could be like a mini draw engine. Is it better than other A-Specs? I'm not too sure, but there are sneaky ways to make this card actually have a bit of value. It's not the worst A-Spec in the set. I think really the Miracle headset is the worst A-Spec in the set. But there you go. Those are all the new cards in the new set. We got all the new artworks here. Special artworks for Flygon is beautiful. I really like Black Hirum's full art too. The Flourish Borders, all that stuff. Got the Illustrator rares. Pikachu, obviously, the big money chase card in the set. If you pull this, it's going to be worth like $200. Definitely the card of the set for sure. Lone Executor might also be kind of expensive. We'll have to see on that one. Latias will be hella expensive too. Latias and Pikachu are going to be really valuable, actually. Geez, so for any collectors out there, Pikachu and Latias are going to be really expensive cards. But there you go. That is the entire set of Surging Sparks. Let me know what you think of it down below. Like I said, I think this set is a lot better than Stellar Crown. There's a lot more playable EXs. I think the offset of that is that the item cards are less impactful, though I think that Counter Gain, probably Brilliant Blender are really good. But we'll have to see. I think the set is a lot better than Stellar Crown. There's a lot more playable cards in the set. A lot of really fun decks you can build with Hydreigon and Flygon and Palossand. Really excited for the set to come out. And I think, hopefully, some of the EXs are actually going to be playable and not just, like, unplayable, like kind of what we got with Stellar Crown. But we'll have to see on that one. A lot of really cool stuff on the set. Really fun set, and I cannot wait to go to my pre-release later tonight and open up some packs and hopefully pull some playable cards and all that good stuff. If you enjoyed the video, once again, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me on the road to reaching 18K subs. Again, let me know what your favorite card in the new set is, and I'll catch you on another video here very soon. Bye-bye.